Welcome to the Everyday Comfort Podcast, where we help homeowners make smart decisions and save money, and guide contractors on building trust, growing their business, and delivering real value. Let's dive into the show.
Hey, I'm Anthony Mound, and this is Everyday Comfort, real-world guidance for homeowners and home service professionals to help you make smarter decisions, avoid expensive problems, and stay comfortable year-round. Today's episode is sponsored by Trust One, your local plumbing and HVAC team in Quincy, Massachusetts. Our mission is simple. We help people win. The company wins, the employee wins, and the customer wins. This means clear communication, quality work, and a customer experience built on trust from start to finish. And today I'm joined by Chad Franzen of Rise 25. Chad has interviewed thousands of successful entrepreneurs and CEOs, and today he's interviewing me. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Anthony. Great to be here. Hey, today I think we're going to talk about kind of maintenance and your recommendations for homeowners and kind of their general maintenance. So I'm going to show the Trust One maintenance list here, and hopefully you can kind of walk us through it. You see everything?
Yeah, I see everything.
Okay. So for people who are watching this on their screen right now, can you kind of explain what this document actually represents in the real world when a tech is in someone's home?
Yeah, so, for us to remember every single item that needs to be checked when it comes to, a plumbing or heating or cooling system, it'd be very hard for our technicians to remember all those things. So we made this sheet so that we can go through and actually look at all the important things, and we put a good, fair, or poor check on there based on the condition of that item. So then this gives them a checklist to be able to go through go to the customer and be like, hey, this is working well, this is not working well, this is a concern of mine, or this might be a close future concern.
Okay, very nice. So let's start with furnaces. When you check things like burners, heat exchanger, and flame sensor, what are you actually looking for?
Yeah, so with a heat exchanger, it contains the flame and the combustion. So we're looking for cracks or any damage inside the heat exchanger itself, because if it is, then you could emit carbon monoxide into the home. Flame sensor igniters, we're actually checking power or continuity across those electrical components and make sure there's proper power or continuity.
There's a line item here, I think number 20 under furnace for checking gas pressure and looking for gas leaks. How critical is that from a safety standpoint?
Honestly, that's one of the most important things because obviously we had an issue in Massachusetts where gas lines were overpressurized and caused units to blow up. So it's very important that we test gas pressure, not only for the efficiency of your heating system, but for the safety of people's families, because we have to check for gas leaks on the gas lines, make sure there's no gas leaks. Even if you had a small gas leak, it can turn into a big problem. And then we also test gas pressure, because if your system is not working at the proper gas pressure, if it doesn't have enough gas pressure, you're going to have issues. It's going to prematurely fail. Components are going to start to prematurely fail, and then you're going to have wasted energy and premature equipment failure.
So also regarding furnaces, you're checking temperature rise, motor amps, and electrical connections. Tell me about that and why those matter.
Yeah, so whenever a motor of any kind, if it's pulling too much power, that means there's something going on with it. And then sometimes there's a capacitor, which is basically a battery pack that gives a charge to those electrical components so that they could start up correctly in the beginning. So those can start to wear out, causing more stress on that motor, and then increase utility bills because it's working harder. And then those components can start to fail. And so also with the wiring and the harnesses and everything like that, if you start to see cracks or they're starting to break apart, that could be an electrical hazard. So we want to make sure we look at those connections, make sure they're tight, and then test power to those components to make sure it's not pulling too much power, or it doesn't have enough power. So those are important with, looking at the longevity of these components.
Switching to boilers, I see things on this list like relief valves, low water cutoffs, and expansion tanks. What role do those play in keeping a system safe?
Yeah, so with any type of heating system or even cooling systems, there's safety devices that are connected to each system. For like a boiler, a relief valve is actually designed to relieve pressure if there's an issue. So most relief valves for a hot water system are 30 pounds of pressure. So if there's more than 30 pounds of pressure, that's going to let off excess pressure. It's actually doing what it's supposed to do. Expansion tank, that actually balances the pressure inside of your system. So if that were to fail, then your system would overpressurize because cold water, when it expands, it gets bigger. So that relief valve, if it blows off water, then there is a potential that you could have a bad expansion tank. So all of those things are kind of related to each other. They are safety devices to maintain the system health and make sure that the system's working properly.
Would a homeowner be likely to recognize a boiler issue, or would that only be like when there's a major issue, like something serious happens?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Chad. A lot of customers don't know the difference between a furnace and a boiler. So uh, I would say most cases no, but sometimes, yeah, it depends on how handy you are.
What about with furnaces? How often do you find issues with those that most homeowners would never detect themselves?
Yeah, with a furnace, a lot of things are electrical components, so I don't really trust. Those can be very tricky. So I don't see a lot of homeowners being able to figure out those things. You do see occasional homeowners that are like, "Yeah, I changed my flame sensor, I changed my igniter," but you don't really see them changing control boards or blower motors or other components related to the system. All basic things like thermostats, changing batteries or changing their own thermostats. We actually see that commonly as a lot of customers changing thermostats.
Also, regarding boilers, there are things like circulators on here, zone valves, flow controls. How do those things impact comfort throughout the house?
Yeah, so a circulator moves the water around the system. So if that fails, you're not going to have heat.
Okay.
Flow controls are like check valves. Um, Obviously, if you have a bad check valve, you're not going to get flow through that thermostat, through that zone. So you're not going to have heat there in one of your zones. What was the last one you said?
Um, Zone valves and flow controls.
Yep. So zone valves, they open and close based on if you have a call from your thermostat. So if those aren't working, you're not going to have heat to that one thermostat. So very important component.
So let's go back to the second page here and look at AC and heat pumps. You're checking capacitors, contactors, coils, refrigerant pressures, subcooling, superheat. Why is this level of detail important?
Yeah. So like I said earlier in this episode, capacitors are basically the battery pack of the system when it comes to motors. If they have a good enough charge, it allows that motor to kick on. And a lot of these components are related to each other. Like a contactor, it transfers power from one side to the other when it has a call for AC. So that pulls in when there's power, it allows power to transfer from one side to the other. All these components are related to each other, making sure that the system has proper pressures. So we always hook up our gauges to make sure that the pressures match. And superheat and subcooling is all related to pressures and airflow. So those are just measurements that we use as, contractors, technicians to make sure that the system's pressures are where they're supposed to be. And so the manufacturer has a set like pressure that they like to see on their units, as well as a subcool. It's usually on the panel on the
Hmm.
condensing unit. And so that's how we make sure that the system's running properly. So those are all signs to make sure that the systems are running properly.
When those things like capacitors, contactors, coils, refrigerant pressures, subcooling, and things like that um, aren't properly maintained, is there a big efficiency loss?
Yeah, so if you have a high superheat in most systems, that's usually looks at like poor airflow or your condensers dirty, which is a very common one. Like some customers, they don't clean their outdoor unit or they don't have anyone clean the outdoor unit. So it skyrockets the pressure on the system, and that can actually cause those components like capacitors and contactors to fail because it's pulling way too much power. So when we check the components for the power usage and the amps, it's high, and generally that's because either your compressor's failing or it has like a fur cat on the outside of that condenser
Mm.
coil. So all these things are related. The pressure definitely is balanced by how the system's running. So those are all related components.
A lot of homeowners, myself included, probably
Mhm.
assume if cold air is coming out regarding the air conditioner, then everything must be fine. In fact, I was just thinking to myself the other day, do we need to get our AC replaced yet? No, it worked fine last year. Based on this checklist, why is that not necessarily a good mindset?
Because if it's July and there's every single contractor's busy and you didn't get your system checked up and it fails, then you're going to be one, you're going to pay more because you're paying for convenience at that point. Two, you're lucky to get someone in a timely manner. And three, like I said, you're going to pay more because if your system has to be replaced, there's not really many incentives for people when they're always busy. Because if you have 10 contractors and they're really busy, they're not really looking to give you a
Mhm.
discount or a better price. They're just going to charge you what the price is and then move along with their day. So if you get a checkup, you can know what's going on. You can actually budget and prepare for a future replacement if it's needed. You can know what's going on, kind of like with your car. You get an oil change. They run through a checklist. They check everything, make sure it's in good condition, so you can not and being at the side of the road, broken down. So
How often do you find systems that are working but operating poorly in your experience?
all the time, all the time. We've seen even brand new systems that are not installed properly. That, yep, high utility bills, five, six, seven, $800. This sometimes it's settings. Sometimes contractors don't know how to set these things up. Like we had a customer who just had the system installed, and their electric bill was massive, and there was literally a setting on the thermostat that the contractor never set up properly.
Oh, really? Wow. So
Yeah, like
you also measure temperature difference between return and supply air. What does that tell you about system performance?
yeah. So if the motor in the furnace or air handler, or whatever you have, is not blowing enough air across, one, your coils can freeze up, and then two, you might have a restriction somewhere. So either in the refrigerant system there's a restriction, or you have maybe vents are closed, or you have an issue with your ductwork. Those are all things that we can see from checking the pressure and then the temperature from the supply and return. That's really the kind of the heartbeat of the system.
Hmm. Is that really one of the quickest ways to spot a hidden issue?
Uh, that would probably be the second one. The first one would be hooking up gauges and looking at the pressures. But if your ductwork's not in good condition or not, like if you have a clogged filter or there's poor airflow, then your pressures are going to be messed up too. So those things go hand in hand when you're checking pressures and then you're checking airflow.
So speaking of ductwork, here there's a section for air leaks,
Yeah.
insulation, cleanliness. How
Yep.
much does duct condition affect comfort and energy bills?
Yeah, so this is a big one for Massachusetts because we have a lot of ductwork that's been in walls for years that's unsealed, uninsulated, and then a lot of consumers now they want to put in heat pumps. And what contractors may not tell them is when they put in that heat pump, they're going to lose a lot of their energy through their ductwork. And so checking for air leaks, air quality, insulation, sizing is a big one because these heat pumps require bigger ductwork than you would traditionally have for a furnace. And when you have a furnace, you might not notice it as much because you have gas. And so that air coming out is a hotter temperature than you would have as a heat pump. So you might not feel it as much if you have a gas furnace and you go to a heat pump. Or if you have a gas furnace, you might not feel the difference.
Has there ever been a case where, fixing an air duct maybe made a bigger difference than replacing equipment?
Yeah, honestly, um, it's a huge component of the system. In some cases, if a system's like they have high utility bills and the system's in decent shape, it might be better off to do the ductwork before you replace the system because you're literally taking a system out, putting in a brand new system into a entire system that is not properly done. So you're literally, shortchanging the life of the unit by not addressing the real problem.
There's right above the ductwork section on this checklist, there's an IAQ section,
Hmm.
indoor air quality, that covers humidifiers, dehumidifiers, UV lights, and air purification. Why is indoor air quality becoming such a bigger conversation lately?
Yeah, one thing I always kind of train my team on is, with customers, either you have a filter or you are the filter. And so when people don't change their air filters, they're literally breathing all that dust, dirt, and whatever else is in the air, fiberglass, like all different types of things. So, a big thing is water filtration too. And that's not obviously not on this list right in front of us, but that goes hand in hand with indoor air quality. We spend a lot of time in our homes and we don't realize that sometimes it's not the safest place in the world with the quality of the air.
Hmm.
Not to scare anybody, but
Sure. So, what symptoms would you say homeowners experience when indoor air quality is poor?
They could get headaches. They could have issues with like, the nose getting clogged up, breathing issues, like allergies, sneezing, coughing, things like that. It could be just your home itself. It might not even be anything outside. So it's definitely worth like taking a look at it. You can go on Amazon, get like an air quality meter and literally just put it in your house and it'll tell you exactly how your air quality is.
And if
And
the
if
air
your air
quality is poor, then take a look at those things.
Yeah, we could look at, electronic air cleaners that remove smell, all those, things in the air, and then we can put in a bigger filter down at the heating air cooling system you have and remove all those components.
We have a humidifier, and for us, it's like the thing is like down in the basement in a little room. It's like out of sight,
Mhm.
out of mind. How important is that?
It's really kind of customer preference when it comes to humidity.
Hmm.
Some customers have Jesus. Some customers have had, you know, forced air systems for a long time and they just deal with the dry air. Some customers are like, man, I don't like this at all, and they get a humidifier. But yeah, it helps with like some people get nosebleeds, right? And
Hmm.
so a humidifier can help with that because it can put more humidity into the air.
Looking at the plumbing and water heater sections, you're
Hmm.
checking safety valves, expansion tanks, venting, draft, and water temperature. What risks exist when these aren't inspected regularly?
Yeah, I always say plumbers protect the health of the nation because things can become unsanitary if they're not taken care of over time, especially with leaks and sewage backups and pipes not draining correctly, or little children can get scalded if the temperature is not regulated properly with your water heater.
Mhm.
We could prevent a lot of these issues from becoming bigger issues or causing house damage by testing the plumbing system. Because plumbing is one of those things where it's like that commercial where the guy runs out and he's like, "I'm danger, I'm danger." That's kind of like what plumbing is, and
Hmm.
the plumbing just doesn't care what day it is. It just when it breaks, it
It
breaks.
goes bad, huh?
Yeah,
So, when a water heater goes unchecked, obviously a child being scalded, that's a terrible scenario.
right.
What's the worst case scenario?
Worst case scenario. I've had people who have had water lines in their attic where they like ran the water lines up into their attic and then it burst and flooded like three of their floors,
Oof. Yeah,
causing thousands of dollars of damage. Um, yeah, so
not
I've
good.
seen that. That's pretty bad. I've seen sewer backups and like someone who has a finished basement and the sewer just backed up and like flooded sewer water through their entire finished basement. I've seen that. I've seen where people gone on vacation and their whole basement was flooded with like 2 feet of water and their whole boiler was encapsulated in water. Uh, yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff related to water. So
So you, as you mentioned, you have kind of a GFP, good, fair, poor rating. How do you explain those results to homeowners without overwhelming them?
So we always talk about the good things first. I never want to go into a homeowner's house to think that we're trying to sell them something or to be dishonest about anything. So we always go over the good. Like, hey, these are all the things that are going really well with the system, and we try to break things down and how they operate, not what they are. Like if I told you relief valve and you didn't know about it before this episode, then you would be really confused because I'm just talking in trade jargon. But if I told you what it does and how it affects you and your family and how it affects the system, then you're more apt to actually understand it. So we try to like go through the every single one, go through the good things, go for the areas that are going to be a concern in the future, and then go through some recommendations that we see of things that are really starting to fail or have failed that they should really get taken care of sooner than later.
So when a homeowner sees fair instead of poor, what should they do?
They should plan for it in the near future. Like fair is like, hey, it's in okay condition now, but coming soon, you might want to take a look at it. You might want to get it fixed.
So don't take it for granted. From your perspective, what's the biggest value homeowners get from maintenance that they don't fully appreciate until later?
The power of convenience, Chad. People like there's people in countries that don't have hot water, right? And then we realize how important hot water is when we don't have it, or heat when we don't have it, or cooling when we don't have it. All of those things are things that we don't realize until we don't have them. So it's convenience, it's inconvenience if we don't have those
Mm-hmm.
things. So it's worth getting everything looked at and cleaned.
What would you say, final question, what would you say is
Yeah.
the cost of neglect compared to the cost of prevention?
Oh, every system we go to that hasn't been maintained, and I mean, we went to a service call yesterday where the person didn't maintain their system for 10 years and they haven't changed their air filter in 10 years. Sounds kind of crazy to me. But yeah, they had to spend like upwards of 3 grand in repairs to get the system to like be operationally like solid. Because there's a lot of other components that were damaged. We had to like pull the whole unit apart, clean everything to get it back to, like the factory fresh. That was obviously a higher tiered option. They wanted to be more preventative and as they were selling the home, but it can cost thousands of dollars to make these systems run well if you neglect them.
Whereas if you are proactive, what would you say the percentage? By what percent would that 3,000, for example, be reduced?
Oh, a lot less. A lot of customers that maintain their system, their repairs are 500 or 1,000
Mm.
when they have to do those repairs because, those, all that dirt getting packed in the system is just causing other components to fail.
So basically, you're going to be paying something. You might as well just pay it up front and pay less rather than wait until the catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to just ride it out and see what happens. Like, I mean, for me, like, I wouldn't drive my truck around and like let the engine blow without an
Right.
oil change. Like, I mean, hey, whatever. I mean, I'm not judging. Do whatever you want to do, but that's just not how I'd roll.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice. Hey, good stuff, Anthony. Any final thoughts on this checklist here?
Yeah, do your maintenance.
Perfect. Perfect. That pretty much sums it up. Hey, Anthony, great to talk to you as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jed.
So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Everyday Comfort Podcast. We'll see you again next time. And be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.
I bring pressure.